Don't freak out, she said, still smiling. It's not what it looks like. I didn't say a word. I just stood there, blocking the hallway, holding her silk scarf in one hand and his shirt in the other. Both smelled like cheap cologne and hotel hallway air, like something borrowed from a weekend neither of us had been invited to. She took one step toward me. Elwood, she began. I blinked. There was lipstick on her neck. Not her shade. That light coral color? She hadn't worn that in years. She once told me it made her look too hopeful. I think that's the word she used. Hopeful. There was a duffel bag at her feet, half-zipped. Her coat was still on. Hair slightly windblown. She hadn't even made it fully inside yet. Miso, our cat, stared from the top of the stairs like she could smell the ruin. Where did you get that? She asked, glancing at the shirt I held like it was a live snake. Were you in my suitcase? No. It had fallen out when she swung it onto the bed and her zipper caught the corner of the nightstand. The shirt tumbled out like a confession. Still, I didn't answer. My fingers tightened around the fabric. The collar had a name tag sewn in, A. Becker. The same name that had shown up on her lock screen 4 nights ago. The message preview had disappeared before I could read it all. But I remembered the first 2 words, miss you. She looked past me. You don't understand, she said again, softer now, slower. It wasn't real. The heater clicked in the corner. The fridge buzzed like static. Then she smiled again, that half-smirk she used whenever she was about to talk me down from something I should have been angry about. The same smile she used when she forgot our anniversary and said, isn't every day with me a celebration? I finally spoke. Just 4 words. You were never alone. Her face twitched. I reached for the remote. The TV behind me flickered on. I had queued it up already, muted, looped. A security feed from a hotel hallway in Minneapolis. Room 708. Timestamped 3 nights ago. Her. Him. His hand on her lower back. Her smile wider than I'd seen in months. Then the door closed behind them. I turned the volume up 2 notches. The hallway went quiet. I looked at her again. And for the first time in a very long time, Daria stopped smiling. Daria stared at the screen like it was showing her own funeral. For a second, I thought she might faint. But she didn't. She straightened her posture instead, exhaled, and said the exact words that will probably echo in my skull for the rest of my life. So, you've been watching me? She said it without a hint of guilt. No, I'm sorry. No, let me explain. Just that, a sideways accusation, like I had crossed a line. And still, I didn't yell. I didn't scream or throw the remote. I just stood there, holding that stupid shirt and tried to figure out which version of my wife had just walked through that door. Because the Daria I married? She used to cry during commercials. She used to make pancakes on Sundays even if she was dead tired. She used to kiss me with her eyes closed. But this woman, this stranger in my kitchen, was calm. Too calm. You followed me? She asked again, quieter this time. Is that what this is? I finally managed to speak. No. I didn't follow you. But I did get a call. That got her attention. She blinked once, slow. A call? From who? I watched her closely. She was trying to calculate. Not react, calculate. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I walked over to the table, reached beneath the placemat, and pulled out the envelope. The one that had arrived 2 days ago, no return address, just a Minneapolis postmark and my name handwritten in blue ink. She didn't move. Didn't breathe. I slid the photos across the table. 8 of them. Each one a stab. The first showed her at the rooftop bar, sitting too close to him. The second, both of them laughing, heads tilted toward each other. The third? Him brushing her cheek with the back of his hand. The next few weren't graphic, but they didn't need to be. It was obvious. They were intimate. Familiar. Not coworkers. Not friends. Something else. She didn't even look at them. Instead, she sat down slowly, like her legs had stopped being legs and turned into guilt-soaked noodles. I'm not going to lie, she said at last. Oh good, I thought. Because up until now, honesty has been your strong suit. But it's not what you think. There it was. The line. The classic, golden, get-out-of-jail phrase. She kept talking, but everything came out like air leaking from a tire. It wasn't planned. It just happened. We were all drinking. The team went to that bar. Alec, he's new, he's in product dev, he was just being nice. One thing led to another and No, I interrupted, my voice suddenly breaking like a branch under weight. Don't you dare, one thing led to another, me. She flinched. The kitchen went still again. Except for Miso's collar jingling faintly upstairs. You planned this, I continued. The new sundress. The hotel you personally booked. The fact you didn't answer my call that night, remember? When I tried to FaceTime you and you said the Wi-Fi was bad. You lied. I didn't lie, she snapped before catching herself. I just didn't tell you everything. Which is, I tilted my head, the literal definition of lying. She leaned back, folding her arms, and for a terrifying moment I realized something else. She wasn't even ashamed. Not really. She was tired, irritated, like a woman caught speeding who now had to sit through a lecture from a cop. And that's when it truly hit me. She hadn't come back to confess. She had come back assuming she'd gotten away with it. Everything, the latte, the bounce in her step, the humming. It was all part of the same performance she'd been perfecting for who knows how long. Only this time, the curtain fell early. She looked at me, maybe trying to find some part of me that would say, "It's okay. I get it. We can fix this." But that part had gone missing somewhere between photo number 3 and the moment I saw her holding his hand like it belonged there. And then she said something that flipped the table in my head. "I was going to tell you, just not today." I think what broke me more than the cheating was the timing. It was Friday, March 15th, the anniversary of my dad's death. She knew that. I told her weeks ago I didn't want to do anything big. Just maybe light a candle and play the old vinyl he gave me when I graduated college. And she nodded like she understood, like she cared. But now here she was, sitting across from me, slowly peeling off her coat like we were about to have coffee and catch up, and telling me that she'd been planning to admit to sleeping with another man. Just not today. "You were going to tell me?" I repeated, barely able to keep my voice from cracking. "Just not today. Not the day I mourn my father. But what, maybe tomorrow? Or next Thursday after trivia night? Or maybe after I rubbed your back and said I'm proud of you for getting that promotion?" She didn't say anything. She just looked down at her nails. Freshly done, I now realized, and picked at a corner of polish like she was more annoyed than ashamed. I wanted to shake her. Not physically, but emotionally. I wanted to rattle her world the way she had just demolished mine. But instead, I whispered something that made her go still. "Was he better than me?" She looked up sharply. "What?" "You heard me, Elwood. I'm not going to answer that. You just did." Her mouth stayed shut, but her eyes fluttered, and that was enough. I stood up so fast the chair screeched across the floor. "I washed your cat puke off my pillow 3 nights ago while you were..." "What?" "Straddling your coworker in a hotel bed with complimentary champagne and pretending to care about climate solutions? You can't even look me in the eye and say it wasn't worth it, can you? That's not fair. Neither is this marriage." That finally hit her. She blinked, and I saw it. The tiniest fracture in her composure. She stood up too, crossing her arms in that tight, cold way she did when she was about to flip the script. "You want honesty, fine," she said. "It wasn't supposed to happen. Alec and we were talking late at the rooftop bar and it felt easy. You and I haven't been easy in a long time, Elle. You walk around like everything hurts. You mumble through conversations. I can't even remember the last time you touched me like you meant it." My mouth went dry. "You think you're the only one who's lonely in this house?" she added. "I sleep next to someone who doesn't even realize he stopped being alive 2 years ago." I didn't know what to say. She was right. I had been numb. I'd buried myself in routine and comfort zones and quiet sadness. But I didn't cheat. I didn't destroy what we had. I just got small. And she didn't tell me she was slipping. She just fell into someone else's bed. I looked around the room. The candle I had lit earlier for my dad had burned low. The photo of us from our honeymoon sat crooked on the shelf. The cat still hadn't come downstairs. And then I said it. "Get out." She looked at me like she hadn't heard the words. "Now, Elwood. Don't be dramatic." "Dramatic?" I laughed, sharp and broken. "You think this is drama? Daria, you cheated on me during a business trip and came home smiling. If I'm dramatic, it's because you wrote the scene." She opened her mouth to say something, then stopped, closed it again, picked up her bag. But just as she turned to leave, she hesitated. And that's when I noticed something was missing. The key ring. Her keys weren't in the bowl by the door. My pulse picked up. I walked over, opened the drawer next to the fridge, checked the hook inside. Gone. I looked at her, Where are your keys? She didn't answer, but her face said everything. I stepped closer. Where are your keys? She finally whispered it like a confession she hadn't prepared for. I gave him a copy. She gave him a key. Not metaphorically. Not symbolically. Literally. A cold, metal copy of our house key, the one I cut myself at Ace Hardware 5 years ago and jokingly called the key to my peace. Now it belonged to a stranger. A man I had never met. A man who had been inside my wife and now might be inside my home at any moment. You gave him a key? I asked, quieter this time because something in me was cracking. I didn't think you'd find out, she replied, and I honestly don't know which part was worse, the betrayal itself or the way she said it. Like it wasn't about morality. Like the only real issue was getting caught. Why would he need a key? I pressed. Was he planning to stop by while I was at work? Or were you just trying to erase that last sliver of separation between here and wherever it is you two pretend this doesn't ruin my life? She turned her face away. I just wanted a backup. For emergencies. You have a phone for emergencies, Daria. Don't make this more dramatic than it is. That word again. Dramatic. It echoed like a curse. Like I had become the villain in a story where the cheating spouse was just a misunderstood protagonist and I, the quiet, tired husband, was the background noise she needed to escape from. I couldn't even look at her anymore. I walked to the front door and locked it out of instinct. Then I slid the deadbolt and stood there for a second, not moving, not thinking, just breathing in the silence of a place that suddenly didn't feel like mine. My house felt hollow, like it had already been claimed by someone else. I half expected to turn around and see Alex sitting on my couch, sipping my orange juice, petting my cat. I want it back, I said eventually. What? The key. His key. I want it back. She hesitated. I don't have it. My chest tightened. You're telling me you don't know where it is? He took it with him when he left the hotel. I thought he'd give it back. Oh. You thought. I nodded, gripping the side of the wall because I was starting to feel dizzy. My brain was trying to organize the pain into folders: betrayal, fear, disgust, confusion, loss. But nothing was filing right. Everything was overflowing. You really let him walk away with access to our home, I muttered. Our cat. My records. My dad's old watch. My life. I'm sorry, she said, but it was too late for that word. It felt like tossing a tea bag into a wildfire and hoping it would fix the temperature. That's when I made a decision. Go pack a bag. Elwood, eh? Now. You're overreacting. No. You're underreacting. That's been the problem this entire time. You're the one who cheated. You're the one who gave away our privacy like it was nothing. You're the one who walked through that door acting like life could just continue. I looked her dead in the eye. I don't feel safe here with you anymore. She froze. Her mouth opened slightly, but the words didn't come. That was new. Daria always had something to say. Always had a clever angle, a softened half-truth, a way to spin the story to make me question my own judgment. But not this time. This time, she just stood there, blinking. I walked past her, went upstairs, and took the duffel bag out from under the bed, the same one she used for her trip. I didn't throw it at her. I didn't yell. I just laid it on the kitchen table and unzipped it quietly. Put whatever you need in here, I said. Then call a friend. Or stay at a hotel. Doesn't matter. But I need space. You're serious, she said, finally understanding. Deadly. She packed in silence. No arguing. No bargaining. It was like she saw something in me she hadn't expected. Maybe it was resolve. Maybe it was the ghost of the man I used to be before she decided he wasn't exciting enough. As she opened the front door, she paused. Elwood. I didn't fall in love with him. I looked at her with what I think was the last sliver of compassion I had left. You didn't fall in love. You just fell. And then she was gone. But the house didn't feel empty. It felt watched. Because the key was still out there. And so was he. The first night alone in the house wasn't quiet. It should have been. Daria was gone. Her perfume had started to fade from the bedsheets. The lights were off. Even the cat had curled up in the corner like she didn't want to be seen. But the silence wasn't peaceful. It was loaded. Pressurized. Like the house itself was holding its breath. I didn't sleep. I kept waking up at every sound, the creak of the stair, the tick of the kitchen clock, the heater turning on like a whisper down the hall. Around 3:14 a.m. I got up and walked the house. Room by room. I checked the locks. All 5. Then I did it again. I wasn't paranoid. I was prepared. At least, that's what I told myself. But then, around 7:43 the next morning, I found the envelope. It had been slid through the mail slot, no postage, no name, just EL scrawled in all caps on the front. My chest tightened before I even touched it. Inside were 2 things. A photo and a note. The photo was taken from outside my house. The angle was low, like the person was crouching by the hedges. It showed me through the living room window, standing by the kitchen counter with a cup of coffee in my hand. I had no idea it had been taken. None. The note was worse. The house looks better without her. I see you finally cleaned up. There was no signature. Just that. Black ink. Plain paper. I stared at the words for a long time, trying to find something, a smudge, a fingerprint, a clue. But there was nothing. That's when I realized something terrifying. The windows were closed last night. Curtains drawn in most rooms. But not the living room. I always left that one open a little. For Miso. She liked to perch there. That's where the photo had been taken. I was standing less than 5 feet from whoever was watching me. I stepped back from the window like it had bitten me. My mind spiraled. What if he'd come up to the door? What if he'd tried the key? What if he'd walked around the house like a guest at a private viewing, judging my photos, my dishes, my life? I called Daria. She didn't pick up. I texted her. Where's Alec? I got something this morning. A photo. A note. He's been here. No reply. I stared at the message bubble for what felt like an hour. I didn't even notice I was shaking until I dropped my phone. The rest of the day was a blur. I called the non-emergency police line, and a very polite officer named Chad took a report and said it was probably just an emotional provocation. I asked what that meant. It's what people do when they want you to know you're being watched. But it's not quite enough to be a crime. He didn't threaten you. Technically. So I wasn't even allowed to feel unsafe properly. Great. That night, I installed a camera above the porch. Another in the backyard. I sat up again, watching the footage live on my laptop. Every squirrel made my stomach twist. Every car that slowed down felt like it might stop forever. And then, sometime just after 2 a.m., someone rang the doorbell. Just once. Not a knock. A ding. I jumped, heart thudding like a drum line in my ribs. When I checked the front camera feed, no one was there. But there was something else. A flash drive. Left neatly on the doormat. I hesitated before grabbing it, half expecting it to explode in my hand. Back inside, I plugged it into an old laptop I hadn't used in years. The drive had one file. A video. No title. I clicked play. It was her. Daria. Not from the hotel. From somewhere else. A dark room, poorly lit. She was sitting on a bed, looking down, wiping at her eyes. The camera was shaking slightly like it was held by hand. She wasn't talking. Just breathing. Like she'd been crying for hours. Then a voice from off-screen spoke. Alec. You said you were going to leave him, he said. You said it'd be different this time. She didn't respond. He spoke again, colder this time. So now what, Daria? The video cut off. Just black. I stared at the screen, unable to move. My wife had given him a key. And now he'd given me something back. I think he wanted me to know he still had her. I watched the video 5 more times. Not because I wanted to, but because I was trying to understand something that made no sense. Daria didn't look like herself in it. Her face was pale, eyes red-rimmed, hands clenched into fists on her knees. There was no confidence, no attitude. She looked small. And Alec's voice? It wasn't charming or smug or clever like I'd imagined. It was cold. Controlling. The way he said her name didn't sound like affection, it sounded like a threat dressed in silk. I wanted to believe she was in danger. But after everything, how could I? She still hadn't responded to my message. I sent another. I saw the video. Are you okay? Still nothing. A part of me wanted to go to her. Kick down whatever door she was behind and drag her out if I had to. But another part whispered something darker. What if this was her plan? What if this wasn't a cry for help but a hook, one last string to pull me back? I didn't know what to believe anymore. About her. About him. About myself. At 10:24 that night, I got a message from an unknown number. You want to know how far it went? You deserve the truth. Come alone. No cops. 207 Baldwin Street. Room 6. Midnight. I stared at it so long, my screen dimmed twice. The address was familiar. A rundown motel off the highway. I'd passed it 100 times and never thought twice. Now it felt like a trap. But I couldn't ignore it. I needed answers or closure. Or maybe I just needed to stop feeling helpless. At 11:45 p.m. I was parked outside the motel in my old Subaru, engine running, fingers gripping the steering wheel like it was the only thing keeping me in one piece. Room 6 had one light on behind the curtain. Just one. No movement. I stepped out. The air was damp. The kind of sticky cold that clings to your skin. Every instinct in my body screamed, don't do this. But I walked toward the door anyway. Step by step. Slowly. Carefully, I knocked. Once. Twice. No answer. Then, just as I turned to leave, the door creaked open an inch. I didn't see anyone inside. Just a room lit by a single lamp and something else. A phone. Propped up on a chair. Camera pointed at the door. Recording. I pushed the door open. It didn't creak like in the movies. It just swung silently like it was waiting for me. Inside, silence. No one in the bed. No sound from the bathroom. Just the low buzz of the lamp and the faint red blinking dot on the phone camera. I stepped in. The phone was already recording. On the screen, I saw myself in real time. It was angled to capture my face the second I crossed the threshold. Someone had set this up intentionally. But who? On the bed was a folder. Plain. Manila. My name written across the front in block letters. I didn't sit down. I opened it standing. Inside were printed screenshots. Dozens. Text messages between Daria and Alec. Photos I had never seen before, taken on other nights, not just the trip. One from a cabin. One from what looked like his car. One from my backyard. And then a final page. A contract. A lease agreement. It had both their names on it. The date? 2 weeks from now. They were planning to move in together. Not after the affair. During. While I was still sleeping on the other side of the bed. While I was cleaning up after her cat and cooking her meals and writing her anniversary card early like a fool. I heard footsteps behind me. I spun around, heart in my throat, but no one was there. Just the hallway. Then a text buzzed on the phone, still filming me. I leaned in. From her. Now you know everything. You can leave whenever you're ready. I stared at the message, waiting for something else. But nothing came. She wasn't here. She never intended to be. This wasn't a meeting. It was a delivery. A way to end things on her terms. A slow, controlled demolition of everything I thought I had left. I left the motel room without touching anything else. I didn't need to scream. Didn't need to break the phone or burn the folder. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel weak. I felt hollow, but clear. Like the wreckage had burned through everything unnecessary and all that was left was the truth, cold, sharp, but solid. She hadn't broken me. Not fully. She just helped me see what I refused to face. I got in the car and drove for hours with no destination, just away from the life I thought I had, from the woman I thought I loved, from the house that didn't feel like home anymore. When the sun started rising, I stopped at a gas station off a quiet road somewhere near Lake Hudson. I got coffee. Watched the mist roll across the water. It was quiet. Really quiet. Not heavy, not tense, just still. And for once, I let it wash over me without trying to fix anything. I turned my phone off. I didn't answer her next message. Didn't watch the video Alex sent later that night, the one he probably hoped would make me spiral. I didn't spiral. I called my sister instead. The one I hadn't seen in 2 years because Daria didn't get along with her. She answered with, "Is everything okay?" And I just said, "Not really. But maybe it will be." I asked if I could come stay for a bit. She said, "Come home." And I did. Not to escape. To rebuild. Weeks later, Daria emailed. No subject line. Just a message. I didn't mean for it to end this way. I hope you're okay. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Because somehow, despite everything, I was.